The absolute horror of the massacre in Israel by the terrorist group Hamas that happened last week is absolutely one of the most horrific things we've seen in our lifetime. It's kind of beyond words. We couldn't overstate it. The amount of violence, the violence itself was just, I don't have any other words besides, to me, demonic, satanic, hatred in a way that I think a lot of us can't really understand. The butchering of babies, the gang raping of women, the laughing about these acts, where there's video footage of people laughing, having fun doing it. We were reaching a peak insanity point in the world, but there's a spiritual demonic aspect to this. And I know already somebody's saying, I can't believe you're saying this, John. You're not mentioning any of the things that Israel's done. I'm not getting into that. I'm talking about the demonic, the absolute demonic, horrific acts. They must be spoken about. This is going to be a great episode because I have not seen a lot of people talk about this, frankly, the way we're going to talk about on Cooper stuff. I think we're going to get into some things that are going to begin to make sense for some people. I think we're going to see a lot of tie-ins with what we've been talking about on Cooper stuff about a war against Western civilization, which is a war against Christianity, against Judeo-Christian values, against the world that Christianity built, all right, the entire West. And it is being supported by a lot of, I think, good-hearted people that do not understand how wonderful it is to live in a country that's free. It's even being supported by a lot of Christian people, and I cannot understand it for the life of me. Meanwhile, we've seen American university groups, some in the media, some BLM chapters, members of Congress, and even Christian influencers either support Hamas or bring moral equivalence between the violent acts of Hamas and the perceived oppression against Palestine from Israel. So we're going to be jumping into these things. I'm wondering when some of these Christian people who supported BLM, our leaders, people, you know who they are. I'm wondering when they're going to come out and say, hey, sorry, got to repent. I was wrong. Didn't understand what it was about. Got to repent. We're going to jump into this worldview where you're going to explain why this revolution is happening. You're going to understand after this very important and sober Cooper stuff. Are you getting it now? That's my question. Serious question. Are you getting it? People that watch Cooper stuff week after week after week, for years now, we've been talking about all of this stuff, what it means to have a Christian worldview, and the fact that if you don't have specifically a Christian worldview, you still have a worldview. It's not like you're neutral. Everybody has a way that they see the world. Everybody has some sort of highest standard or something at the top that is authoritative. It guides you, morals. It guides what you believe is just, what is righteous, how you are supposed to treat your neighbor. Everybody has that. So my question is, are you getting it now? We are living in absolutely insane times. Last week, as we saw, of course, the massacre that happened in Israel, there's so much to get to. We're going to get to it, but I want to explain something. The episode I filmed last week was called "There Are No Victims in the Kingdom." That came out on Monday. By Monday, this had already happened. I filmed that, though, as well as Thursday's episode, which was episode 1 of Sword and Shield, which was called "Open Your Spiritual Eyes." I filmed both of those things prior to the attack on Israel from Hamas, all right? So I filmed it before that, no idea what was going to happen. But I said in that episode that in the Western world, the number one most valued possession right now is victimhood. It is the way everybody sees the world, through a lens of oppression, through a lens of oppress and oppressor. I filmed that last week, then I did this Open Your Spiritual Eyes thing. The reason I'm saying that is because this is exactly what we've been talking about. It is viewing the world through oppressors and oppressed groups of people. It's the reason. Have you been slack-jawed? I know you have, because I've received tons of texts from friends of mine, very smart people, and we've been exchanging texts, so I know you have. Have you been going, wait a minute. There's an attack on Israel, and we're going to get into the Israel stuff a little bit. I'll tell you what this episode is and what it is not in a second. As we're watching this, just murdering innocent people, murdering women, raping women, stealing children for sex slavery, killing children, beheading children, all the stuff. You know the stuff, and we'll talk about it. You know the stuff. As you've been seeing it, and you go, wait a minute, how come American college students are coming out in support of this? Like, mind blown. How are we seeing people in academia come in and say, well, this is Israel's fault? Basically, they brought it on themselves. You've seen Christian people, I've seen it on social media, random people that I don't even follow. Darlene Check, okay, who was a worship leader who wrote Shout to the Lord. I believe she wrote Shout to the Lord, which is random. I don't follow Darlene. Somebody sent it to me. Darlene Check posted a pro-Israel thing, just saying, it wasn't even, it was pro-Israel, but it was just saying, my heart is for Israel. We're praying for Israel. This attack is really horrible. People under her saying, Darlene, I love you. I love what you do. I'm a Christian. You've meant so much to me. How can you possibly come out and be on Israel's side with this, with all of the incredible evil things that Israel has done to Palestinians? How could you possibly do it? They're bringing moral equivalence between what they view that Israel has done wrong or is doing wrong and this just massacre. I know you've seen it and you're wondering, how's this possibly happening? I've been telling you on Cooper stuff. Now, I know it's going to sound like I'm just like hawking my book right now. I mean, I am. I want you to buy the book. I want you to buy the book because I think it's going to help you. I think it's going to help you. You got to go to johnlcooper.com, pre-order the book. Well, let me give you some quotes from the book, can I, to explain why it is so very important. And I want to say, in the sovereignty and the providence of God, I was supposed to release this book in May. Long story short, didn't believe it was the right time. I thought it's just not right. We've got to push this thing back. And it is never, I never imagined it being as pertinent as it is with what we are seeing right now. This is one of the things I say in the book. Listen to this. The war against America is a war against Western civilization, is a war against the Judeo-Christian worldview, is a war against Christianity. Now, some people go, oh, the war against America. Oh, so you're saying if people don't love America, they're against Christianity? That's what you're saying? It's crazy, because what happens is that some Christians start to say that's idolatrous, because America is not the kingdom of God. America is not the nation of God. You're a Christian nationalist. They say all this. What they do not understand is the reason I get so annoyed when I see Christian people come out and begin to bash America and to fight against America and become anti-American. It's not because I think that you're not allowed to criticize America. Of course you can criticize America. Being anti-American makes me awfully nervous, because I know what is happening. The war against America is not just a war against America. It's a war against the civilization that Christianity gave birth to. We call it, sometimes you call it Western civilization. Sometimes they call it Christian civilization. Civilization is built on Judeo-Christian morality, which is the Bible. So when you see Christians, you see pastors come out and just war against America and want to tear it down because it's an evil, patriarchal, whiteness, whatever you want to call it. If you boil it all down, it's not just a war against America. It is a war against the foundations of Western civilization, which is Christianity. And that is why you have all of these worldviews coming together to support what Hamas did against Israel. Let me read you another quote from the book. And let me explain. I said, you have to understand the revolutionaries, the people that want a revolution against America. You have to understand why. It's not that I'm fighting for America. I'm fighting for a Christian worldview, for our ability to thrive, to flourish, and yes, to preach the gospel, and yes, to live my faith, yes, to have the ability to raise my kids the way I want to raise my kids, not the way the state wants to raise the kid. Do you understand that if the state gets the power to raise your kids, they will raise your kids in an anti-Christian? They are anti-Christ. They just are. Now, you say, oh, there's just one revolutionary. No, there's lots of different factions of revolutionaries all coming together. It's the reason that BLM is pro-Palestine and anti-Israel. It's the reason this week that BLM came out, as you saw in certain chapters, in support of what Hamas did, even in the support of the actual violence. Why? Because BLM wants the exact same thing as Palestine? Well, no, not exactly. You have to understand the point of the revolution. If the revolution is righteous, is what I say in my book, then anything that aids in the revolution is moral. Therefore, the revolution is moral. The only thing that's immoral is non-revolution. The only thing that's immoral is impeding the revolution. Let me read this from my book. Are you ready? This is from Wimpy, Weak, and Woke. You can pre-order it right now, johnlcooper.com. You need to. I say this: how can we build a society with such delusional people? Have you noticed we're with some delusional people right now in America? But it's not just America, as we've seen. As you see college students support the actions of Hamas to gang rape women, kill elderly people, steal children, as you see it, you go, oh my gosh, they're delusional. They think this is righteous. How can we build society with people like this? I say they're delusional. Pastor Tim Keller suggests a way forward, explaining that, quote, Christians should acknowledge common grace, and that non-Christians share with us common intuitions about the good, the true, and the just. We should appeal to those common values and work alongside our neighbors in an effort to improve justice in society, end quote. That's what Tim Keller said. Then I write, I agree that we should look for opportunities to join with the world for common goals if, that's a big if, listen, if common goals can be had. For instance, they may believe in protecting children from sexual predators. Good, so do we. They may want to protect the mental health of young people. Good, so do we. But what happens when the world does not want to protect children from sexual predators or from poor mental health issues? What happens when the world attacks us for protecting children? More to the point, what if the popular culture has become the perpetrator of these evil attacks against our children, but they think their attacks are righteous? Hello, did you hear that? What if the world is actually the ones attacking our children, trying to ruin our children, like, I don't know, teach them gender confusion at 4 years old? What if they become those perpetrators, but they believe they're the righteous one, and you, Christian parent that says, I'm not really into that, what if you are the evil one? If that happens, can we do what Tim Keller is suggesting? Can we say, guys, we have common intuitions about justice and goodness and what is beautiful? What happens if that happens? Back to my book. This is precisely the situation at hand. This is the flaw with the third way approach. We cannot assume that all people have common intuitions about justice. In fact, we clearly do not. The world has become delusional. They are charging blindly towards utopia and do not realize they are about to fall off a cliff. It is the same as it was in the time of the prophet Jeremiah. Our society does evil and doesn't even remember how to be ashamed. Quote, were they ashamed when they committed abomination? No, they were not at all ashamed. They did not know how to blush. Jeremiah 6:1, verse 5a. If society continues to reject the created order with such unparalleled vigor, we will find out that common grace ain't as common as it used to be. That's from my new book, Wimpy, Weak, and Woke. That's what we're going to be talking about today. You can go pre-order it, johnlcooper.com. Pre-order it now. We cannot assume that we have the same worldview as people in other countries. You can't even assume you have the same worldview as people in America. I'm going to tell you what is happening, where this is coming from, because I want to respond to the people that say, why are Americans supporting this? You need to understand what is happening. And I'm going to tell you right now, right after this break from our sponsor. Let me tell you guys about my friends at SD Bullion. All right. Precious metals, gold and silver. Some people go, I don't really understand why this is a big deal. I want you to understand this. A couple of years ago, I got very concerned about the state of the world. All right. We're talking about inflation. We're talking the amount of debt the U.S. has is so absolutely insane. We're talking about the possibility of a one world technocracy, a one world currency, which is just so very, very frightening. We are printing money and spending money at a rate that we cannot keep up with, frankly. So I said, okay, what can I do to diversify my funds that I have something in my hands in case the very worst happens? And that is why you need to contact SD Bullion. All right. I'm not saying go sell everything you have and buy a whole bunch of gold. I'm saying you may want to consider putting a little bit of your money into gold and silver. SD Bullion is a Christian-owned company. They're passionate about training Christians about investment and about why gold and silver are a good investment. They have great pricing. They send straight to your house. They will send you a brochure. All you got to do is this. Text the word Cooper to 465-322. That spells gold 22. They're going to send you a brochure. They'll teach you about it, give you options. Or if you say, hey, I want to spend 75, 80 bucks. I want to get a silver coin or something like that. Text the word Cooper to 465-322. That's gold 22. They're going to give you a discount on your first order. All right. I do it. I bought all of my stuff for there, and there's just something about having it in your hand. You put it in a safe, and if the worst ever happens, you go, you know what? I know this for sure. This is a scarce resource, right? We're not printing gold. You can't make more gold, can't make more silver. There's a limited supply, which means it's going to hold its value. So if that interests you, do yourself a favor. Contact SD Bullion and say, hey, give me some information so I can understand exactly what this is. Text Cooper to 465-322. I explained there's a lot of different revolutions. That is why it's so hard to tell people what my new book is about, because we have the Marxist revolution. We have got utopian revolution. We have actual just terrorism, nihilistic rage. We have this sexual revolution. All of these things are a revolution against Christianity, Western civilization. You have to understand it like that. Now, let me tell you what this podcast is not. I am not going to give you the history of Israel and Gaza and Palestine. I'm not qualified to do that. And for anybody that's like, dude, John, you're copping out. I've been saying it from the beginning of Cooper stuff. I wish people on the internet would not talk about things they don't understand. And I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm just saying I try not to give answers to things that I just don't get. And I will tell you, I've studied it. It's confusing. It is extremely complex. So I'm not here to do that. So some people might already be going, John, you're only talking about what you say is the massacre against Israel. You're not talking about all the evil things that Israel has done to Palestine. You're not talking about the fact that they are a settler, colonialistic, blah, blah, blah. You're not talking about the fact that they also killed. There's all these things that Christian people are saying it. Yes, I am not giving you the history. I am not defending everything that Israel has done. I don't even understand everything Israel's done. Some of what I've seen Israel do, I go, oh yeah, I actually don't agree with that. Don't like Israel and their history and all these various things. That is not what this is about. I want to give you an understanding of what I think is more important to me, which is why are Americans supporting violence from Hamas? Or else, why are they making a moral equivalence of the two things? Because that's what we're dealing with here. So this is not about the history of Israel. You're going to have to go somewhere else. In fact, I'd like to give you a few recommendations to do that. Why don't we go to this segment? We haven't done it in a while. Recommendations. This is my recommendation for something that's cool to watch or read. It's cool, because I'm cool, and I only like cool stuff. Cool stuff! Okay, great recommendations if you just want little 5-minute videos. PragerU, go to PragerU.com. They've got lots of 5-minute views. Now, of course, it's a conservative outlet, so you're only going to get that side of it. But they got 5-minute views. All you got to do is go to their search bar in their videos and do something like Israel. Go to apartheid, Israel apartheid, or something like that. That will give you two-state solution, all these kind of things, Israel, it will give you all sorts of history things. That's a good one. I would like to give another recommendation. Last week, Ben Shapiro, all week long, all 5 of his daily videos were absolutely stunning, startling. Warning, he shows a lot of the videos of the massacre, and it's brutal. I mean, I had to just not watch some of it. It's just too much. His point being, you have to see how absolutely violent this is so that you do not forget. It's sort of like the reason Auschwitz is still around. All right. So you can go to Auschwitz, which I've been, by the way. You can see the horror of the Holocaust. You can see what they did. And so we do not forget. And so we do not downplay, because a lot of the times what happens is that we hear these things and we go, okay, it's probably not as bad as what I thought. You have to see it. That's why you show video footage. I'm not showing the video footage. Ben Shapiro did. Go check that out. Also, ask Dr. Brown. That's our friend Michael Brown that's been a guest on the show. He is a Messianic Jew, so he's been doing work into Israel for decades. Go to Ask Dr. Brown. That's his website. I don't know. I mean, there's a dozen articles from last week alone with his explaining what's happening. They're really good. They're really good. On another note, and we're not getting into this, but I just need to mention, there's so much happening in the world. There are lots of things we need to talk about. We just can't get to all of it. There's a major thing happening in the evangelical world with Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley is a mega pastor of I think the biggest church in America. All this stuff going on with LGBTQ stuff. We don't have time to get into it, but I need to give a couple of recommendations for that. Our friend Kyle from the podcast Undaunted Life, he's been a guest on here. Go check out Undaunted Life podcast. He did in the last 2 weeks. I think he's done 2 episodes on the Andy Stanley stuff, because it keeps coming out. And I will tell you, long term for the church in America, it's so very important. You have to go. His latest one was called I can't remember what it's called. Andy Stanley, something about a snake. I can't remember the name of it. It's from a few days ago. Go to Undaunted Life, and you've got to listen to that. He's going to keep you up to date on what's going on. It's really good. Also, Ask Dr. Brown has had fantastic things, because Michael Brown has had personal interactions with Andy Stanley about this stuff. And in the last 10 days, Michael Brown gave an incredible show on his show In the Line of Fire about that situation. You can't miss it. We're not talking about today, but I have to give those recommendations. So go check those out. You guys know about Hawk and Hatchet. That is my company. Hawkandhatchet.com has the awesomest gifts for dudes. It's not just dudes, it's for girls too. Candles and stuff like that. There's Girls Apothecary, but some of my favorite stuff, have you seen our beard oil? If you're watching the video, look how cool it is. This is a particular one called Salute, but beard oils, we've got beard bombs. I've got my own line, as you know, but I'll tell you what, we're mostly known for our candles. Our candles are amazing. And one of my favorite candles is called Cabin. It smells just like you're at a cabin. And so we're going to run a sale on it. Now, we have 2 sales going on, as you know. Right now, we have the fall candle, which I told you last week. That promo code is Fall for Coop, and you're getting a percentage off on that order. If you go on there, you order it, you go and you put your promo code in, Fall for Coop, you're going to get money off on that fall candle, which is good. A lot of women love the fall candle, but there's a cabin candle, and we're also going to be running a sale on that. You're getting $4 off for the candle. It's called Cabin, the promo code Cabin. Both of these codes are going to work, and they're for both candles. So go check it out. The Cabin one, it's so cool. It smells like you're at a cabin. You're having a campfire, but it's also kind of like smells like wood. It's just really great. Dudes love it. Chicks love it too. And so go check it out, hawkandhatchet.com. Again, we have 2 promo codes. Number 1 is Fall for Coop. The second promo code is Cabin. Okay, so now we're back to where I already told you, we are not going to be talking about the history of Israel, and we're not going to be making moral equivocation. Now, you have to understand the videos. If you go back, you've probably seen them, but if you haven't, you go back to Ben Shapiro. If you want to see some of this, what you're dealing with is this. You are dealing with absolute brutality that people in the Western world just can't understand. And one of the things that Ben Shapiro says, I also say it in my book. He said it just this week, and as he's saying it, one of my friends, in fact, my friend Jen Ledger hits me, and she says, "Oh my gosh, Shapiro's episode this week, it's so much like your book." It is, because what happens is in the Western world, we we hear these things and we see these videos of what's happening with Hamas going in and just brutalizing the people in Israel. And we say, okay, wait a minute. What did Israel do to deserve this? Because this is not how people react. So there must be something else going on. You don't just say, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to drop in. They had paragliders go in like on parachutes, paraglided into a rave that was happening in Israel and just started mowing down just 260 innocent people. They just mow them down. They laugh about it. There's a report from a couple of people that were Jews that were hiding in bushes. And they said after they were killing people that some of these Hamas terrorists were taking videos. They're laughing about it. They're having fun doing it. They're bragging about it. They're showing videos of what they did. Then they mutilate the dead corpses of these people. We have that. We have footage of, since then, of terrorists, Hamas terrorists that were captured by the Israeli army. There's a video footage of one of them being questioned, and he's saying to them, why did you go in and just start gang raping women? Why did you do that? And the terrorist says, to soil them, to desecrate them, to this and this and this and this. You don't do that because you are just fighting for freedom. Do you see what I'm saying? So we had this idea, okay, they're fighting for the freedom in the West, because nobody would just do things like this. They also found notes on dead Hamas terrorist bodies. So people that were killed by the Israeli army, they found notes on there. You can find this is reporting on Daily Wire of them being told where to find children. They were meant to go and find the children. That's one of your priorities. Go and find Israeli children and murder them. All right. There's footage of babies' heads, being chopped off, kids being stolen, women being raped. It's some of the most, I've never seen anything like it. You go to Ben Shapiro or somewhere else if you want to see that. I'm not showing it on Cooper stuff. Absolutely horrific. It's a different worldview. Here's what I've not been hearing on very many podcasts. I'm sure there's somewhere. People are focusing on the anti-Semitism. They're focusing on the fact that Hamas hates Jews and wants to kill Jews. Yes, of course, that's the case. What I want to talk about then is that why do we see Americans supporting it? You have to understand the worldview of oppressors and oppressed groups. Let me read you one of the things that most people aren't really talking about. I write about it in my book. It's decolonization. What is decolonization about? It has a ton of different applications. But here's what's important. I was reading something in The Atlantic where there was a woman, a German woman, after World War II, after the Holocaust, after all this, and she says, if more people had read Mein Kampf, which was Hitler's book, if more people, not more people, if people outside of Nazi supporters, so in other words, more people outside of the Nazi regime, if more people had read the book and believed it, then we would have seen nations get involved earlier. The problem is that in the Western world, because of Christianity, we don't believe these things are possible. We just don't believe they're possible. And so she's saying if more people had read it and believed it, that wouldn't have happened. And she said, even some people that read it, they said, okay, I guess it's going a little far, but nobody would ever do that. Does that sound familiar to you? We dealt with something. Obviously, I'm not comparing BLM to Hitler. Do not tweet that. I'm not comparing it. Okay, but I am comparing the sentiment of hearing what somebody wants to do and somebody with a Western worldview going, yeah, but they don't literally mean that. So do not tweet me and do not report me saying that I'm comparing BLM and Hitler. I am not. Okay. The two atrocities are nothing alike. But the sentiment of me saying to my Christian friends, hey, do you know what BLM wants to do? Have you read the website? Now, by the way, BLM from its inception was pro-Palestine. They were anti-Israel from the beginning. So now people are going, oh my gosh, BLM came out in support of what Hamas did. Yeah, that's right. From the beginning, they said that. Why are you surprised? Because you did not believe us. You did not believe the people that were saying it. I'm talking to my Christian friends. Have you read what? You do know that BLM wants to destroy the American framework. Well, yeah, but you have to admit, America's been kind of an oppressor. I'm saying, oh, are you saying that you want to destroy individual freedoms? Well, no, but that's what they want to do. Why don't you read their stuff and believe them when they say they want to disrupt the nuclear family? Why don't you believe them? It's the same thing. So what we have is this fight for decolonization. Let me just read this. Decolonization is the undoing of colonialism. The latter being the process whereby imperial nations establish and dominate foreign territories, often overseas. The meanings and applications of the term are disputed. Some scholars of decolonization focus especially on independence movements in the colonies and the collapse of global colonial empires. Other scholars extend the meaning to include economic, cultural, and psychological aspects of the colonial experience. When you hear things, Christians now, tons of Christians are saying it. They're usually on the Christian left, but they're saying we need to decolonize the faith. We need to decolonize America. The idea being that everything that we experience in America or the Western world, we're talking about individual rights or whatever it is that you say defines Americanism. How's that? This is also pertinent to the whole idea of whiteness. Whiteness it comes along with colonization. It is this idea of imperialism. You come in and you just destroy the indigenous cultures and you bring your worldview and you dominate them. And if that hadn't happened, then everything in life would just be good. So being that colonization is evil, it is an empire coming over, it is oppressive, then the only thing moral in that worldview, the only thing moral is a revolution against colonialization. Whatever you have to do to end colonialization has got to be moral. You see what I'm saying? So you apply that to what is happening because you go, well, how come all these American Marxists and people in academia, why are they teaching our kids that what Hamas is doing is justified because Israel brought it on themselves? Why are they doing that? Even though, like, Hamas and college students do not want the same world. Like, you have to ask yourself, why are LGBTQ supporters, why are lesbian activists and gay activists and trans activists, why are they in support of Hamas? Like, you got to understand, Hamas would kill lesbians and trans people and gay people and believe that they were going to be rewarded by Allah for doing so. You cannot live in the Gaza Strip as a gay person. They don't allow that. You can't live in the Gaza Strip as someone that says Jesus Christ is Lord. You can't live in the Gaza Strip as saying, I do not believe in Allah. You can't live. There is a reward from Allah for murdering you, okay? And for desecrating the bodies and for soiling the women. Why do you think they go into Israel and they say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to decolonize this place but because of their colonization settlers. So we're going to go in and gang rape women. Why do you think they do it? So you look at this, you go, well, wait a minute. Why do American Marxists and American liberationists and all these other things, why are they joined together? They are joined together by these liberationists. Some of them are Marxists, not all of them are Marxists. Some of them are just this decolonization, and anybody that they agree is an oppressed group of people. That's who we're on the side of. Okay. And if you don't believe me, let's read this. This is from the Daily Wire. Washington Post columnist celebrates anti-Jew terrorism as exactly what decolonization means. Again, I write about some of this in my book. I don't get deep in the weeds on decolonization, but I go through it a little bit as a utopian revolution, but also it because of its postmodern philosophies, post-colonial theory and things like that, because part of decolonizing means to destroy a worldview that has taken over your worldview. And because that's what you see in whiteness studies in America. They say that whiteness is the worldview. So colonization comes in. With it is a worldview of whiteness. And that worldview of whiteness are the cultural attitudes and the morality of Eurocentric white people, European white people, namely the Bible. So the things of whiteness that are infecting America that have to be destroyed are things like the Protestant work ethic, monotheism, the belief in absolute truth, the nuclear family. All of these things are a foreign worldview. Post-colonial theory teaches that there is no absolute truth. That is those European white people's worldview. They brought it over here, and they by imperialism and oppression pushed it onto this worldview. That's why they say, in whiteness studies, people say that people of color who agree with those white worldviews, the nuclear family, the Protestant work ethic, individualism, liberty, blah, 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 have actually internalized whiteness. It is white supremacy as an ideology internalized. That is why they say that conservative Black people are not truly Black, okay? That is post-colonial theory coming from decolonization. Well, this Washington Post columnist, who's an academic, of course, says, guys, what is happening against the Jews, that's what decolonization means. Now we're back to what I'm talking about, the Mein Kampf thing or the BLM thing. When I'm saying, don't you see what they're saying? This is what they mean. This is what they want to do. And you go, no, they don't. That's not really what it is. This person's saying, duh. Here's the article. A Washington Post columnist who once led the paper's international opinions section lent support this week to those kidnapping, raping, and killing Israeli citizens. Karen Atiyah, or Atiyah, I don't know how to say that, a prominent journalist, echoed a social media post by a fringe Somali that said, quote, what did y'all think decolonization meant? Vibes, papers, essays, losers. End quote. The X post, that's Twitter, the X post suggests that those on the left who bandy about terms like decolonization but don't support the terrorism of Hamas are hypocrites, and that is exactly what the leftist academics are pushing for with that language. That's what she's saying. She's saying, hey, who has two thumbs and is a leftist academic? This girl, that's what she said. This girl, that's me. This is what we mean when we talk about decolonization. Why? Because as I wrote in my new book, Wimpy, Weak and Woke, which you got to go get, the only thing that is moral is revolution. The only thing that is immoral is non-revolution. And if you are not fighting for the revolution, then you are immoral. Does that sound familiar? It's sort of like saying silence is violence. Post a black square for BLM. It's the same exact tactic. If you're not fighting for the revolution, then you are immoral. You're supporting whiteness. You're supporting oppression. That's why they have to destroy America. That's why they have to destroy Western worldview. Let's see what else she says. Back to the article. She reposted someone else elaborating on that same thought. Quote, all my American education taught was that all we have to do to fight brutal, racist oppression is schedule a single die-in or refuse to give up a single seat on a bus, and justice automatically prevails through nonviolence, end quote. Atiyah, that's the Washington Post person, justified terrorism, non-state actors inflicting violence for political gain, writing, quote, we are forced to see state violence as justified plus moral, while violence by non-state actors isn't. This is changing. This is the same exact worldview of BLM. BLM said, we have state-sanctioned violence against Black people and people of color in America. Do you remember that? Even all of our academics said this. Even all of our celebrities said this. King James that plays basketball. LeBron James, remember the famous tweet? He's like, people like me, Black people, we can't even leave our homes because the state it sanctions our death, basically. You can just go out as a policeman and just start mowing down people of color, and the state says, yes, that's what we're doing. And we're not allowed to fight back. That's what BLM is saying. And that's what she's talking about with decolonization. She reposted someone else saying, quote, I suspect that what we have instead are mostly people who believe that violence is only the legitimate province of some people. And what is morally required of everyone else is submission. What she is trying to say is that what we're saying is, oh, it's fine if the state commits violence. It's fine if Israel comes in and slaughters all of our people. It's fine if the American government just slaughters people of color all the time. But when we push back, we're not allowed to do that. Is that what you're saying? Ataya, again, that's the writer. Ataya boasted that she is the real deal, not someone who uses the terms as vague platitudes. Quote, I studied race construction, human rights, and global anti-colonial resistance in college and grad school, she wrote. Honey, we did the scholarship way before it was cool. She reposted on X, which is formerly Twitter, liberation, self-determination, and peace for all oppressed plus colonized people. That's my politics. All right. So what we are dealing with right here is exactly what I am talking about. It doesn't mean that Hamas wants to build the same world as your LGBTQ pride professors and academia in America. They do not want the same world. Why are they joined? They are joined together because of a worldview of oppressed and oppressors, which is a Marxist worldview. I'm not saying that they're all Marxists, but that is a Marxian worldview. And guess what? So many Christians in America believe it. I want to read you a tweet somebody sent me because my son is looking at colleges. He went to look at Wheaton, which I was already against, but we decided we'd go down. He went for a day. It was so stinking woke. He went literally for 2 hours, completely woke. Do not send your kids to Wheaton, okay? So my friend who I told this was actually John Harris from the show Conversations That Matter. It's his podcast. He knows that. And I said, yeah, my son said it was completely woke. He sent me this tweet. This is from a professor from Wheaton College, all right? A quote-unquote Christian school, apparently. Here's what he says. Observing privileged white Christian men lecture the world on how just war works is an ongoing reminder of how much we have empowered white gaze, G-A-Z-E, and made it prevalent. Woo! Christians. Yeah. Yeah. All these white people lecturing the world about just war as if white people have the right to go on and say, hey, even if you are at war, even if Israel is doing something wrong, we do not support like war crimes. We do not support the gang rape of women, the butchering of babies. Well, in America, we actually do support that, about 800,000 of them each year. We do not support the butchering of babies. We do not support stealing children, using them as human shields, okay? Or to put them in some sort of sex slavery, God knows what. We don't do that. That's not just war. That is an evil thing that God demands. We speak out against that sort of just evil and brutality. I don't care. I don't care what's happened in the past. That is a wicked thing we have to stand against. A Christian professor is saying, wow, pretty privileged white, kind of a pretty privileged white way to say things, don't you think? So what's he saying? Is he saying that he supports it? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Let's be fair. I'm not saying he supports it. I'm sure he goes, well, no, I don't support it. Of course not. Then why make the tweet? Why are Christians doing this? Why is our Christian leadership class so often doing things like that? Why? Why do they come and constantly berate America as an oppressor? And if you push them, you say, well, are you saying that you want America to be torn down? What do you think is going to replace it? They have no answers. They just want to be seen. Listen to me. They just want to be seen as speaking up for the quote unquote marginalized and oppressed. That's what they want to be seen as. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it may cause. They just need those virtue points. What are virtue points? It's when the world says, slow clap. I made these woke cookies for you. Do you want them? And they're like, yeah, of course I want them. They're woke cookies. Of course they want them. So what is the point of constantly supporting a worldview of the oppressed and the oppressors? Because everybody believes that it's just normal. You got to understand this. Let me tell you a story. I had a friend who worked for Skillet. I won't say who he is. I had a friend that worked for Skillet who was always constantly on the wrong side of every single moral issue. He's a Christian. How can that possibly be? For years, I thought, brother, how can you be on that side of this issue? This was years ago. I don't understand. How can you? This is happening under the law of God. These people are doing something to innocent people, and the law of God says that that's not good. Why are you supporting them? Are you saying what they're doing is good? Say, no, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that we have to support them because even though what they're doing is evil, they've been oppressed. And I would go, I don't understand what you mean. Every single time. We were on tour one time, and one of our employees didn't want to ride the bus with the Skillet crew. He wanted to ride the bus with the other crew. Why? Because his feels made him feel better. They were better friends, and he just liked them better. And those are my people. I want to ride the bus with a different band that was opening on the tour, but this is a crew member. And so if you don't know the way touring works, basically our bus has to get there first because we have the crew and they set up for the show. If there's a band opening up, they don't have to get there at the same time. They can show up later because all they got to do is set up their own gear. That comes later in the afternoon. We load in at 9 a.m. They load in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My production manager says to our employee, no, you can't ride their bus because we need you here at 9. He says, well, the other band says that they'll make sure that I'm there at 9. It's just, and it'll all work out fine. They argue about it. And finally, my production manager says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. You have the permission to ride that bus, but if you're late one time, you're off the tour because I need somebody I can depend on. Okay, we'll do that. So what happens? They're late. And he says, I told you if you're late, you get kicked off. I'm going to give you a warning. He says, but you understand if it happens again. He's like, you don't know what might happen. They may have a flat tire. It may not be your fault. It may not be anybody's fault, but it's the way it goes. And that you agree. Oh yeah, I agree. Totally. What happens? The other band's bus broke down. They couldn't make it till 5 o'clock. So we got to say, hey, we got to let you go. And guess what? This guy, the guy that's always on the wrong side, he ends up making speeches all day long about how this guy is being oppressed. He's a good worker. I confront him. I say, yeah, but you do know those were the rules. You're on our team. And this is about I'm your employer for one thing. By God, I'm your employer. So nicely, I love you in Jesus' name. Shut up. As a brother in Christ, why are you always on the wrong side? This is not how you act as an employee. As an employee, you're supposed to be representing Christ. As an employer, you're also supposed to be representing Christ, by the way. So as a Christian, how are you making this happen? What's the deal? And you're speaking out against me and my production manager and the people who pay you while this guy's doing something. But why are you always on his side? And he said, hey, what can I say, man? I just, there's big people and there's little people. And I have a heart for the little people. That's who Jesus had a heart for. Unbelievable. Why? Because he's raised in a time in this country where everybody thinks that if you are oppressed, quote, let me start over. How if you're oppressed, they have redefined who is oppressed, which is what being woke means, by the way. You redefine who is oppressed. That guy that I want to go on that bus because they like my feels and they make me love, happies. They make me feel good on the feels inside. I want to be with them. Doesn't matter that my employer doesn't want me to, because that's just not right. I'm the little person. They're the big person. He is not being oppressed. But in our new thing, well, we're the employer, which means if we're the employer, who are we? We're the capitalist we're the business owners, we're the quote unquote rich people in this Marxist worldview. He's the poor person, the working class, the proletariat, the whatever you want. He's the little person. So that means he's the oppressed. Jesus wants you to stand up for the oppressed. So that means anybody that's on the bottom of the scale or whatever your particular worldview, whether it's economic, cultural, religious, intersectionality, well, that's who you have to fight for. So now we have Christians supporting, they're not supporting what Hamas is doing. They're not saying, oh, I love it when children get butchered. They're not saying that. I want to be fair to them. They're not saying that, but they're saying, well, I'm just saying, guys, there's two sides of this story. There's two sides. I mean, it's not my friend's fault that the bus broke down and he made it late. It's not my friend's fault that he likes them and they make him feel good on these. They get to watch Care Bear videos at night, and over here we don't. You know, we're mean. We make people work over here. I mean, Israel's done some really bad stuff too. You do know that. You do know that. It's unbelievable. Why are they doing that? Because they have an incorrect worldview. They have an incorrect worldview of the oppressor and the oppressed. They heard what the left said about decolonization, about whiteness, about imperialism, about the oppressed and the oppressors, about their Marxist worldview. Lots of Christians are moving socialist very, very quickly in the name of Jesus, they believe. So they had to support this because, well, yeah, but they're the little people in this scenario. That's why this is happening. You're not hearing this on a lot of other podcasts. Now, I'm not saying because, Cooper stuff is the best one, but I'm not saying it's, in other words, there are other podcasts giving you really good information, I'm sure, on why this is happening, but we're not focusing on the fact that all of this is tied together. It's the reason that BLM, you got to see what BLM did. Maybe I'll show the graphic if you're watching the video. BLM Chicago puts out a graphic of a paratrooper. Now, what is that alluding to? It's alluding to the fact that paratroopers from Hamas glided into Israel and mowed down like 260 innocent people. What does BLM Chicago do? They put a paratrooper on their thing and they say, we support Palestine. Why? Because, as I said in my book, the only thing moral is revolution. Some people are saying, I don't understand. What does BLM have to do with Palestine? Well, ask the question, bro. What does BLM have to do with LGBTQ? What did Black Lives Matter, which Black lives do matter, by the way, obviously. I hate seeing Black people killed. I hate seeing what happened to George Floyd, hated it. What do Black Lives Matter have to do with trans folks, as they say on their website, FOLX? Hate how they put X's on things. What do they have to do with Black trans women? What does that have to do with LGBTQ? What does that have to do? It all has to do with intersectionality. It has to do with a worldview that everything that comes from Christianity and Judeo-Christian ethics is evil. So the next time you start hearing what people on the Christian left are saying, and the next time you start seeing pastors just berate America as colonialism and as, look, has America made mistakes? Of course. People say, oh, I mean, what these people did to the indigenous people of this country is absolutely horrible. Of course it's horrible. Who's not saying it's not horrible? What they did to African people that came from African descent and chattel slavery is just so godless. Of course it's godless. Yes. By the end, of course it is. We know that. I agree with you. I agree with you. So do you want to tear down the foundations of the country? And if so, what do you want to put in place? We're gonna wrap this thing up here in a second. Let me explain this and we'll get to it later. If you're asking yourself why I'm so passionate about this and what does all this mean? All this tearing down the country, tearing down Western civilization. Is it idolatry? If you're asking yourself that question, it's because I read the people and I believed the people. I believe them. I believe Karl Marx. I believe the critical theorists. I believe the liberationist movements. I believe the people that want to decolonize. America and England and all the decolonization stuff. I believe post-colonial theorists, when they say we need to decolonize whiteness and Western ways of thinking, I believe the Christian left, when they say they want to decolonize the faith. Can I give you some examples of decolonizing the faith? Here's an example. Here's an example. The atonement of Christ needs to be decolonized according to these quote unquote Christian, they call themselves Christian academics. Because the idea of atonement and punishment and the wrath of God for sin, that is a white Eurocentric Western understanding of justice. Hello, the atonement of Christ. So they say, well, of course, Jesus died on the cross, but the wrath of God for your sin and my sin was not poured on Jesus. That makes God like really, really super duper mean. You might say, well, John, that just sounds like liberal theology. It is liberal theology, but with a bent. And the way they're bending it is they're saying, well, there are other cultures that do not have that understanding of wrath, justice, judgment, etc. And because they don't have that, they read the Bible and they say, well, I don't see it. In other words, what they're saying is that white Europeans read the atonement into the scriptures. It's not in the scriptures. That is your culture. That is your bent. That is what your culture taught you. So when you read the Bible, you're reading the atonement into the words, but it's not actually in there. And it is not right for you, patriarchal white person. It is not right for you to tell another group of people, whether it's a different color group, a different ethnicity, a different economic group, a different whatever, different geographical location, hey, sorry, you're not reading the Bible correctly. It's not up to you to do that. Why? Because they have their own particular knowledge that they get from their own people. There's no such thing as absolute truth. We'd never know. If there is absolute truth, we could never know it. So why would you say that their knowledge is less than your knowledge? Are you saying that you're superior, you racist, bigot, prejudice, homophobe, transphobe, white supremacist? You see what I'm saying? You say, so here I go to a different part of the world, and they say, actually, we don't believe in the atonement of Christ. I say, then you need to read the Bible because the Bible is the absolute truth. They say, we do read the Bible. We don't see this idea of wrath anywhere in here. That's just not what we believe from our culture. And if I say you're not getting it right, that's because I'm racist and patriarchal. I need to shut up and raise up minority voices. Well, what are minority voices saying? Minority voices are saying the atonement of Christ, that's not actually a thing in the Bible. And I need to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong because I'm oppressing you because I'm majority culture. You're minority culture. So I'm oppressing you. So I'm going to shut up. And maybe you're right. We need to give rise to all the voices. Why they want to give rise to all the voices? Because these people, whether we're talking about the theologians that I'm talking about for the decolonization movement, or whether you're talking about the Marxists that want to tear down America, or whether you're talking about the academics and at Harvard and all the schools around the nation saying we're pro-Palestine, go Hamas, you got to do it because Israel's the oppressor. All of them believe in the goodness of man. They believe that man can solve his own problems, and they believe that the Christian worldview that we call Christian worldview is not actually Christian. They think that it's actually a bastardized, distorted view of Christianity. What's it distorted from? Imperialistic, colonial, Eurocentric mindsets that created tyranny, rape, murder, theft of stolen land. And if we just give it all back, then the world is going to enter into a peaceful state. What is that called? Utopia. Different versions of utopia, mind it. But then everybody will say, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. Everybody's going to leave each other alone. That is what utopia, that is what my book is about. Wimpy, weak, and woke. Why is that wimpy and weak? Because we are not born good. You really think if America says we're on stolen land, we're giving it back to indigenous people and people from, wherever and from South America. By the way, this is also why the left believes in open borders so much. They believe we're on stolen land. So the people below us have a right to our land. This is actually theirs anyway. We are the settlers. We, people in America, us white patriarchal people, we are the colonial settlers. This land does not belong to us. So when you support America, you are supporting theft, colonialism, imperialism, theft, rape, murder, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't belong to you. And when we give the land back, and when Israel gives the land back to Palestine, let's just say, and everybody all around the world, we stop this, we decolonize, we give the land back. Now we enter into peace because man is capable of perfection. That's what I've written my book about. Why is it wrong? Because it is in man to sin and to dominate. You think everybody's just going to go, okay, we're all good now. Are you serious? You think that Iran or you think that Iran, who supports Hamas, you think they're going to be like, oh, of course, we don't want world war. We don't want to destroy the world. We no longer want jihad. We don't want, you think Hamas is going to say, okay, now we're all good. We don't want jihad. No. I mean, you just look at it. And again, I'm not getting into history, but you do know that you can live in Israel and worship Allah. That's legal there. You can worship other gods if you want to, living in Israel. Well, in Palestine, in Gaza, they say that you can worship other gods. They say, as long as you don't speak against Allah. So as long as you don't say that Allah has ultimate rule, then yeah, of course you can be other. That's what they say. So you really think that as long as we get back to all the indigenous people, everything's going to be hunky-dory and nobody's going to try to take over the world. And all of a sudden Hamas is not going to try to go in and murder everybody that doesn't believe what they believe or that speaks out against their particular religion. You think that's the thing? This is the reason that it blows my mind that Christians are so quick to be anti-American. And then they say that we're idolatrous for liking America. And I say to them, I'll say it again, where do you think it's better to live in the world? As an atheist, as a gay person, as a trans person, as a whatever, everybody in this country has equal rights, has individual liberty. Yes, you can speak out against Jesus if you want to in America. You can do that. You can be gay in America, because you have individual rights. Is that not a good thing? You cannot do that on the Gaza Strip. You think it's just going to go back to some utopia? I've gone too long. We're going to end up doing another episode. I want to do another episode on this idea of Israel and multiculturalism and where all these various things are coming in, so you understand the utopia that these people are trying to create. There's a lot of different versions of utopia, but if you understand what the postmodern world wants to do based on the goodness of man, all of this will make sense. And then people will go, oh my gosh, America is actually worth saving because the alternatives are so absolutely horrifying, you guys. It is horrifying. And if you want a glimpse of what it looks like, look at the massacre that just happened in Israel this week. You guys, I want to tell you one last thing about Wimpy Week and Woke. If you go and pre-order it now, here's what you got to do. You got to go to my website, johnlcooper.com. You've got to sign up from the mailing list. And we are working on now how, if you sign up today, how you can receive a free gift of the first chapter, which is the introduction chapter. It's an audio recording you can stream, read by yours truly. That's me. Now, if you had already signed up for that, within the last year or two, then you've already received an email. You should have received an email giving you that free gift. All right. So you go on there, you click the link, you can stream the audio recording of the pre-show chapter is what I call it. If you've already listened to that, please send me a comment and tell me if you liked it, if you thought it was good, provocative, is it worth listening to? Encourage other people to do that. I want to give somebody something for free so you know what you're getting into. So if you're not signed on John L. Cooper, go to John L. Cooper, sign up for that. And in the next couple of weeks, we're working on the digital portion. It's a little hard to figure out because, as you know, I didn't publish this with a publisher. I did it myself so I could say what I want to say and what I believe is true. So go do that. Send me a comment if you like it. Go pre-order it. Tell your friends about it. Have a great week.
Read the Bible.